Jay-Z just can't stop showing us exactly who he is. And honestly, that NFL Super Bowl moment is the one I keep coming back to because it lays out the entire blueprint of how this man operates. You have Colin Kaepernick literally sacrificing his career, putting his body on the line, taking a knee to bring attention to police brutality, and the whole movement builds to this fever pitch where artists are allegedly being told, boycott the NFL, don't perform at the Super Bowl, stand in solidarity. Then Jay-Z steps in, secures a $25 million deal with the NFL to produce the halftime show, and suddenly the conversation shifts from justice to, what did he call it? Actionable items. The body language in that press conference tells you everything you need to know about who was really running things. Desiree Perez is standing right behind him with this confident smile like her guy just pulled off the heist of the century. And then the reporter asks the simplest question possible. Would you kneel or would you stand? And Jay-Z completely unravels. His answer wasn't an answer at all. He starts stammering about how we've passed kneeling, we're on to actionable items now, and you can literally watch Perez's face drop in real time. The smile vanishes, her eyes start scanning the room, her brow furrows because she knows marketing, she knows optics, and she knows her boss just blew it on camera. That's the moment Candace Owens says she lost respect for him, and honestly same. Before we get deeper into this, make sure you're subscribed to Metro Society so you don't miss any updates on stories like this one. The thing about Jay-Z that's always fascinated me is how his music tells one story and his actions tell a completely different one. Growing up, I had Jay-Z and Kanye on heavy rotation, and there's no denying the man's lyrical genius when it comes to navigating business, understanding power dynamics, knowing how to move in rooms where deals are being made. He literally taught a generation how to think like a boss, how to calculate your leverage, how to never let them see you sweat. But then you watch him and Beyonce campaigning for Hillary Clinton, and you realize all that boss mentality he rapped about apparently stops at the door when Hollywood comes calling. Candace made this point perfectly. Jay-Z is smart enough to know better. The DNA of his own music proves he understands the game. So when he gets on stage and tells people to vote a certain way, it's not ignorance, it's a choice. He's choosing access over authenticity every single time. What makes this pattern so undeniable is how far back it goes. Remember when the American Gangster album was dropping and Jay-Z caught all this criticism from white critics about making a gangster album, calling it that, leaning into the aesthetic, and instead of standing on his artistic vision, he immediately backtracked and started explaining that no. He was inspired by the Denzel Washington movie. It was cinematic, it was conceptual. Like, bro, just say you wanted to make a gangster album, the art spoke for itself. But Jay-Z couldn't let it stand because he cares so deeply about what certain people think about him. He needed their approval more than he needed his own artistic integrity. That's the fundamental difference between him and Kanye that Candace identified. Kanye is willing to say things that make him deeply unfavorable in Hollywood, willing to burn bridges and torch his reputation if he believes in something, whereas Jay-Z calculates every move based on who's watching and whose approval he might lose. Now let's talk about Colin Kaepernick, because this is where the story gets genuinely dark. Kaepernick's girlfriend and Kaepernick himself have come forward and said that Jay-Z actively had a hand in Cap not getting another job in the NFL. Think about the layers of betrayal there. Kaepernick starts a movement, sacrifices everything, becomes essentially blackballed from the league for standing up against police brutality. And Jay-Z swoops in, takes the $25 million NFL deal that was supposedly about advancing social justice, and then allegedly works to keep Kaepernick out. Jay-Z housed the whole movement and made it about himself. He took someone else's sacrifice, monetized it, and then sidelined the person who actually paid the price. When Jay-Z stood at that press conference and said kneeling wasn't about a job, it was about injustice, he was technically correct until he made it about him having a job. It becomes about Kaepernick not having a job when Kaepernick doesn't have a job, specifically because he stood up for Black people being killed by police. You can't separate those two things, and Jay-Z's attempt to do so was transparently self-serving. Dame Dash once described Jay-Z in a way that has never left my brain because it's so surgically precise. He said, Jay-Z is the house slave that gives hope to the slaves in the field. For the guy who made it into the master's house, and now he stands on the porch and lets everyone else see him up there, thinking maybe one day they could be in the house too. That's why Jay-Z has this almost cult-like following of people who will defend him no matter what he does, no matter how many times he sells out, no matter how many movements he co-opts. He gives them hope. They think one day Jay-Z might come down from his penthouse and sign them. One day, Jay-Z might see their talent and pluck them from obscurity. One day they could be like Jay-Z, and the brutal truth, as Candace's father used to tell her, is you can be something, but you cannot be anything. Don't ever get it twisted. That realism is necessary because people get lost in the fantasy that proximity to power will eventually trickle down to them, and it never does. The Nicki Minaj angle adds a whole other dimension to this that people need to sit with. Nicki has been vocal about how the hip hop industry actually functions, how if you don't get involved with certain things, if you don't play ball with certain people, you get blackballed completely. She's spoken about it repeatedly, and now she feels vindicated, watching more information come out. Jay-Z himself has teased exposing the blackballing that goes on in the industry. He was supposedly going to author these explosive tweets, but he got too sleepy, needed a nap, and never actually did it. Convenient, right? The man who knows where all the bodies are buried suddenly gets very tired when it's time to start naming names. Nicki didn't hold back though. She wrote about how your favorite artists have been practicing rituals in satanic cults, taking babies from other countries, mutilating and killing them as blood sacrifice to their god. She said, when your master is Satan, you must constantly shed blood, but the jig is up now. And look, 5 years ago, if someone said Diddy was involved in the things that have now come out in court with male prostitutes exposing what was happening, nobody would have believed it. The conspiracy theorists keep getting vindicated as more information surfaces. The CERN situation is another perfect example of how this works. Someone caught ritualistic activity on tape, people dressed up in the middle of the night pretending to stab women in front of a statue of Shiva. And when the footage surfaced, the official response was essentially, oh, we were just faking. That's just what scientists do for fun. They dress up in robes and stage occult ceremonies as a joke, apparently. How much more needs to be in our faces before people wake up and realize these people are ruling over us, and they win when we're fighting with each other instead of paying attention to what they're doing. The connections between Hollywood, the music industry, and things that seem unbelievable until they're proven true keep getting harder to dismiss. What's emerging about Jay-Z's connections is even more troubling when you follow the thread to Harvey Weinstein. Jay-Z was mentioned in the context of being with Weinstein while someone was being assaulted. And that's not a small detail to gloss over. A bunch of people rightfully started unfollowing Jay-Z after that information surfaced. And it fits a pattern that people have been tracking for a very long time. Candace has been saying for years that Jay-Z sold out to the feds, that he's clearly working for them. And honestly, that explanation makes more sense than any alternative when you look at the trajectory. The individual who came forward about what was happening with Diddy and Cass explained how the feds operate with rappers. They give them tons of money, then they move drugs in, and it's not unbelievable at all. We know this is a thing. The feds approach whoever's popular and say, we need you to do this, you're going to work for us, and here's what you get in return. That's not conspiracy theory territory anymore. That's documented reality. The Jay-Z we grew up listening to, the one who rapped about power and ownership and not getting played, that version of him would have seen all of this coming. That's what makes it so frustrating. The music contains the blueprint for seeing through exactly the kind of compromises he's made. He told us how to recognize when someone's benefiting off your brand while giving you nothing in return. He told us how to move in rooms where the people smiling at you are the same ones who undermine you the moment you leave. And then he turned around and became the cautionary tale his own lyrics warned against. Candace gained more respect for Kanye specifically because Kanye, for all his chaos and controversy, is actually willing to say the things that make him unfavorable. He's willing to lose access, lose deals, lose the approval of people whose opinions Jay-Z clearly structures his entire life around. The body language from that NFL press conference should be studied in marketing classes as an example of what happens when someone who's been coached to say the right thing gets hit with a question they didn't prep for. Jay-Z's face goes through about 5 different micro expressions in 3 seconds. He's flustered in a way you rarely see from someone who's built an entire career on appearing unflappable. The people behind him are shifting uncomfortably. Desiree Perez's expression collapsing in real time is the money shot because she knows exactly how bad that moment is going to play. She's already running damage control in her head while he's still fumbling through the answer. When someone who's that good at PR can't hide their panic, you know, the unscripted moment revealed something real. The hope Jay-Z sells is the most insidious part of all of this. People who will never be in his vicinity, never be on his radar, never get a phone call or a meeting or even a glance from him, they defend him with their whole chest because he represents the possibility of making it. He's proof that someone from where they're from can end up in the room. But what they don't realize is Jay-Z isn't opening doors behind him. He's closing them and collecting a check for doing it. The people who think one day he'll see their talent and reach down to pull them up are waiting for something that was never going to happen. Candace's father was right. You can be something, but you cannot be anything. And the sooner people internalize that, the sooner they'll stop giving their loyalty to people who see them as nothing more than leverage. The institutional behavior here follows a script we've seen too many times. A grassroots movement builds around genuine injustice. Real people make real sacrifices. The movement gains enough momentum that the establishment can't ignore it anymore. So instead of addressing the actual issues, they bring in a familiar face, someone from the community who's been vetted and approved, and they give them a big check and a platform. That person then redirects all that energy into something manageable, something that won't actually threaten the power structure. Kneeling becomes actionable items. Justice becomes a halftime show. The person who started it all gets erased from the narrative entirely. Jay-Z didn't stumble into this role. He was selected for it because they knew exactly what he would do. Nicki Minaj talking about satanic rituals and blood sacrifice in the industry isn't coming out of nowhere. She's been in these rooms, she's seen what happens behind closed doors, and she's one of the few artists with enough leverage and enough willingness to burn it all down that she'll actually say it publicly. When she describes artists taking babies from other countries and killing them as blood sacrifice, she's echoing things that other people in Hollywood have hinted at for decades. Every time footage surfaces of ritualistic activity, like the CERN incident with people in robes staging what looked like a human sacrifice in front of a Shiva statue, the official explanation is always that it was a joke, it was performance art, it was just scientists having fun. And the public accepts that explanation because the alternative is too disturbing to contemplate. The Jay-Z we have now is the logical endpoint of someone who decided a long time ago that being in the house was more important than telling the truth about how the house operates. He gives just enough hope to keep people watching, just enough glimpses of what's possible to keep them dreaming, and meanwhile, he's cutting deals that benefit exactly the people his fans think he's standing up against. The unfollowing that's happening now, the gradual peeling away of people who are finally seeing the pattern, it's long overdue. More will come out. More people will speak. The information that seemed unbelievable 5 years ago is now court-documented reality, and the people who were called conspiracy theorists are getting vindicated one headline at a time. Jay-Z knows all of this. He's known it the whole time. The question isn't whether he understands what he's doing. The question is whether the people who still defend him are ready to admit that the hope he's been selling was always just a product and they were always just customers. Here's what sticks with me about that American Gangster moment. An artist made a gangster album. That's it. That's the entire story. But Jay-Z couldn't just let it be that. He had to reframe it, intellectualize it, tie it to a prestige film, distance himself from the very aesthetic he chose to create, all because certain critics might think less of him. That's not artistic evolution, that's fear. That's someone who's so terrified of losing his seat at the table that he'll disown his own work the moment it becomes inconvenient. Compare that to Kanye, who will double down on the most controversial thing he's ever said just because someone told him he shouldn't say it. One of them is Free, one of them is Jay-Z. The Feds connection isn't even the most damning part. The most damning part is that Jay-Z looked at Colin Kaepernick, looked at someone who actually sacrificed everything for a principle and saw not a brother in struggle, but a business opportunity. He saw a movement he could monetize, a spotlight he could step into, a problem he could solve for the NFL by making it go away. And when Kaepernick wouldn't bow down, wouldn't play along, wouldn't let his sacrifice be repackaged as entertainment, Jay-Z allegedly made sure there were consequences for that. That's not business. That's not even ruthlessness. That's something colder. The people standing behind Jay-Z in that press conference, the Desiree Perez's of his world, they know exactly what the strategy is. Her face changing when he fumbled the kneeling question tells you everything about how carefully managed this whole operation is. She went from confident to calculating in half a second because she understood immediately that the mask had slipped. The unscripted moment revealed the truth the script was designed to hide. Jay-Z doesn't have an answer about kneeling because kneeling was never the point for him. The point was the deal, the access, the continued relevance, the seat at the table. Justice was always secondary to the transaction. Nicki Minaj naming satanic ritual practices in the industry, Jay-Z being mentioned alongside Harvey Weinstein in contexts involving assault, the documented pattern of movements getting co-opted and leaders getting sidelined. None of this is disconnected. It's all the same machine operating the same way it always has. Jay-Z is a particularly effective part of that machine because he came from where he came from and he rapped what he rapped. He has credibility that a suit from a record label could never manufacture. That credibility is what makes him valuable, and it's also what makes him dangerous. When someone with his background and his platform tells people to move on from kneeling, to focus on actionable items, to stop dwelling on injustice and start thinking about jobs, it carries a weight that a politician's statement never could. Candace Owens pegged it perfectly when she said Jay-Z cares about what Hollywood thinks of him. Every decision, every pivot, every carefully worded press conference answer, it all traces back to that central motivation. He wants to be respected by the people whose respect shouldn't matter. He wants access to rooms that shouldn't hold any appeal for someone who really believes what he claimed to believe in his music. And the tragedy is, he's talented enough, smart enough, and influential enough that he could have chosen differently. He could have been dangerous in the way that actually threatens power structures instead of reinforcing them. But that would have cost him the thing he clearly values most, which is being welcome in the house, even if it means the people in the field keep waiting for an